All right, fall cutouts and why they are not a good idea after a certain point. At this point in the year in Michigan, I'm fairly confident to say that we are past the point where cutouts I mean, they're still doable at this point, but not recommended. Um, Especially once daytime temperatures are consistently in the 60s, which push nighttime temperatures down into the 40s ish. Um, that's when I really start looking at other options for cutouts. Um, Depending on location and the situation, I'm pushing that until spring. At this point in the year, doing a cutout is a bit risky because the bees don't really have the time between now and when it snows or the first real decent, really hard frost. They don't have the time to build up the resources, especially if they build in an area or you're removing them from an area where the honeycomb is built in all kinds of crazy directions and crazy shapes and all kinds of stuff. Um, and that, especially in that case where you can't really save any of the comb to put into frames, um, it gets really tricky. Um, so I don't recommend it, especially once the nights get into the low 50s and especially into the 40s. Once that starts happening, I will recommend other issues or other avenues. Um, One thing to do, I've been getting quite a few calls for tree bees, colonies, wild or feral colonies that have taken up residency in people's trees. Those ones are, especially those ones, are gonna be okay for the winter. Um, the only real way to get those out, especially if it's a tree that you want to keep, is to do a forced abscond situation. And in those situations, you're not taking any of the comb or any of the brood or resources. So you really have to either have frames already ready for them that have resources from another hive from like last season or even this season that you can transfer over and give them a boost for the winter. If you don't have anything like that, let the bees be for the winter. They're much easier to handle in the spring, especially if they do survive, because whether or not you take them out, they may or may not survive either way. So if they do survive the winter, you can go back and get them. If they don't survive the winter, then you don't have to worry about it anyway. So, but definitely the food resources is a big issue for doing cutouts this late, and potential pests um, and moisture issues tend to compound at this point in the year with the wilder or the larger temperature fluctuations. Especially if the hive isn't sealed up very well, if the colony hasn't had time to propolize things, then you can get some. You're more likely to get moisture issues in that case. So, quick little thing on why it's not recommended, but definitely still doable. I have done cutout removals in the middle of winter, in the middle of night before, because they've been properties that were either about to be demolished or remodeled, and there was no other real option. So it is doable, but not recommended.